Hey, it's Ramzi. Welcome to this video about ClickUp, the amazing project management tool that you have probably heard about if you're here. Now, after testing dozens of tools, I can assure you that ClickUp is a great choice for project management. It offers powerful structure while being very flexible and customizable. It's a modern tool and it leverages automations and AI to help you save hours every day in task management. Today, you'll understand the basics of ClickUp, how to create your hierarchy, your views, your first tasks, and effectively collaborate and manage your workflow. In the previous one, I guided you through signing up and creating your ClickUp account without making any mistakes. Now in the next episode, we'll cover more advanced features like automations, templates, custom field to leverage the tool to its full potential. Now to get prepared, you can download my free ClickUp guide down in the description below. So take a few minutes, prepare your workspace, take some notes, and follow me in this video to discover how to start managing your work in ClickUp as a beginner. Let's go.
Once you've set up your ClickUp account, and I explained how to in the previous video, you're going to be able to start using ClickUp and create your hierarchy. Just to give you some reminder, we're going to recreate space, a folder, and a list together. The first thing to do is to go here and go to create space. We are going to name our space. We're going to name it, for example, client delivery, and we can pick an icon, pick a color if we want to, and we are going to move on to continue. And it's going to ask us to define our workflow. So we're going to start with the starter workflow. We'll go a little bit deeper into the steps and statuses later. I'm going to go for a list view only this time because that's the only one I need by default. And I recommend you to always keep just the list view by default and then add extra lists as optional into different levels of your hierarchy if you need to. But again, the rule is to keep it simple in ClickUp. Start with the list view, start with simple statuses. And when it comes to ClickUps, we are going to keep the main ClickUp that we need. You can actually take a screenshot of what I'm gonna do. I am only going to keep the priority, the tags, the custom fields. Recommend turning off the multiple assignees as these can make you lose a little bit of accountability if you start assigning tasks to several people. Always turn off multiple assignees unless I really need to keep it on for a specific reason. So then we are going to keep the time estimates and the remap subtasks due dates, incomplete warnings, dependencies, reschedule dependencies, and show status progress. I am not going to dive into detail into each of these ClickUps, but just so you know, the subtask due dates, incomplete warnings, dependency warning, and reschedule dependencies, they're very useful when it comes to project management because they will basically reorder the tasks for you without you having to do anything when you start creating dependencies. I'm going to keep these on. And I'm going to click done. And we are going to create our space. So ClickUp has updated this kind of space creation process recently, and I feel like it's much smoother than it was before. And we are going to skip the intro to the dashboards. We don't need that for now. We have our folder called client delivery in our first list. And what we're going to do is group our lists depending on several topics. So say we are an SEO agency, we are going to create a folder for ongoing clients and another one for past clients. That way we can kind of organize our lists that will correspond to our clients, in our case, to what we're working at the moment versus what we've been working in the past and we need to refer to. So we are going to store our different lists here. We're going to call this client Apple, Tesla, Google. We have 2 past clients, 2 ongoing clients, and we have our hierarchy. Now, what happens is that if I start creating the first task here in the list called Google, so Google SEO planning, for example, it's going to appear here. And again, you can go back to the previous video if you haven't watched it. This will give you a kickstart on ClickUp and on how to set up your account. The hierarchy is important because if we go into our folder here, we can see this Google SEO planning task appearing here. And we can see all the tasks that are within our folder. So if they are stored in the list Tesla or Google, appearing in our folder level. Now I will create a task here, call it task for Tesla. And we are going to go one level above and we are going to go into our list at the client delivery space level. And we're going to create a task for Amazon task example. So we've created 4 tasks here, 1 task per list. And as you can see, it appears at the space level, but if we go a level below on the ongoing clients, we'll only see the tasks for Tesla and the tasks for Google, And if we go into the past clients, we'll only see the tasks for Apple and the tasks for Amazon. So this is important to understand because it's fundamental to be at the right level of hierarchy to see the actual tasks. Very often, I have clients that don't see their tasks, they don't understand why, and it's actually because they're not at the right level of hierarchy, or there's a filter or a grouping that's going on and that they have turned on and forgot to turn off. We're actually going to talk about that now. Once we are in a folder or list or space and we are in a list view, we can actually create filters and group our tasks in a certain way. So what we are going to do now is go into our list called Tesla, and we are going to create a few more tasks. We are going to create 4 tasks: launch SEO strategy, prepare SEO campaign, write 10 blog articles, and publish 10 articles. We have our tasks that are displayed here, and we can actually give them due dates if we want to. So say this one has to be finished by the 29th, this one by the 5th, this one by the 12th, and this one by the 19th. Now, what we could even say is, say this one is actually in progress, and this one is in progress. And by default, ClickUp will group our tasks by status. Now we don't always group these tasks differently. We could, for example, group them by due date. And now that we've defined our due date, we're going to go here into grouping and click due date. Now, what ClickUp did is that it highlighted the tasks that we have to do by the end of the week first, and then it put the future tasks in another group below. Instead of grouping tasks by due dates, we can decide to group them by priority. So we are going to group here and decide to group by priority. The same way ClickUp was able to group our tasks by due date, it was able to group them by priority as well. Now, the next thing you can do on your list view is going to filter your tasks. So you are going to filter certain tasks based on the criteria that you want. For example, we can say, I only want to see the tasks that are in progress. And we are going to filter here and click status is in progress. And we are going to confirm this, and this will group our tasks by priority and display only the ones that are in progress. So as you can see, you can combine the grouping and the filtering to display the tasks exactly the way you want. And this doesn't mean the other tasks have disappeared or deleted or whatever. This is just a way to see your tasks. That's what a view is in ClickUp. So I think you've got it. There's the hierarchy here on the left. We have a space for client delivery, a folder for our ongoing clients, and lists for each of our clients. So now that we're in the Tesla list, we can display our data, our tasks, in different ways. We can display them by priority. We can filter the tasks that I have to do that are ongoing. We can even filter the tasks that I have to do myself, and that's called me mode. So ClickUp is very powerful when it comes to structuring your workspace and viewing your data. Now I'm going to show you a few last things when it comes to viewing your tasks in a list, and I'm going to assign these tasks to myself. There we go. I'm going to clear my filter, and I'm going to assign the other tasks to someone else. We have 2 tasks that I have to do, and we have 2 other tasks that someone else has to do. If I only want to see my own tasks, I'll just click here into me mode, and this will only display the task where I'm assigned, or when there's a comment mentioning me, or where there's a subtask mentioning me. So me mode is very powerful to see your own tasks in a click. Now, a few last things you can do with views is customize the way they're displayed. So you're gonna go into customize here on the top right, into the list options, and we can do a few things here, like show the empty statuses, wrap our text, pin a description. So for example, I can turn that on and add a description here, and I could say, this board is for ongoing work with Tesla, client email elon@tesla.com. So you can decide to have this little note on each of our lists and have our client email or have some main information on our client or on that project pinned here on top so that we can view it quickly. Now, getting back to customization, I could do a few other things. We can see the task location, the subparent task names, display the closed tasks. So if I turn that on and decide to close this task, it will appear because I've decided to show the closed tasks. Now, if I tick that off, it will disappear. I can bring it back on by just clicking here, or I can go back to customize into list options and hide it again. You can decide to close your tasks and your subtasks. So back to our list customization options. We can pin our view so that it's always the first view that will appear here on top. We can protect our view so that no one except us can change it, but that's something that comes in the business plan. We can make that view private, and that will only display it to us and not to our coworkers. We can make this view default for everyone so that when everyone comes into the list called Tesla, they will see this view as a home. We can default it to me mode so that each time someone arrives, they only see their own tasks. So there's a few things you can do. Now below you have a few options that you can actually find here in a click. So I don't really use it from here. You can decide to show your fields, to filter your info, to group your tasks, to play your subtasks different ways, to display your templates, to access your templates, to copy the link to the view, and to export the view. You could decide to export this view as it is, as an Excel file, as a CSV file. That's it for the list view, and I've spent a little bit more time on this one than on the others because this is the default view in ClickUp, and this is the one you'll be using 90% of the time if you start using ClickUp. Now what I'm going to do is clean off all my filters, and we are going to create our first subtask. To create our first subtask, we are going to go into our main task, write 10 blog articles, and put 2 or 3 blog article examples as subtasks. Now subtasks are a way to split up what to do on a task to kind of make it more sizable, easier to handle, and assign it to the right person. So we could have, for example, a blog with 2-3 copywriters and put subtasks for each article and assign each task to a copywriter. We're gonna say, for example, 10 solar panels to choose in 2024. That's our first article. Then 3 EV to buy in 2024 and how to keep your car's battery life. These are 3 articles. They're subtasks of our main task called the write 10 blog articles, and we could decide to put our 10 subtasks here. Now I'm gonna assign the tasks, put some deadlines, and if you want to use ClickUp in its best practice, I'm actually going to show another field that's default in ClickUp, which is time estimates. And to display any extra field in ClickUp, you'll just go here on the right and go to add column and show hide, and we are going to go to the bottom and we are going to select time estimate. Now time estimates are a way to kind of assess how long the task will take. So if it takes 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 days, 5 days, I'd advise you to put this here. Because even if you don't use that feature yet, this is data stored, this is data reported that you can use in the future when you start using ClickUp in a more advanced way to do some capacity planning, to be able to plan tasks for your team in the next weeks, manage the workload better, do some analysis of the time spent versus time estimated. If you start having this habit of estimating your tasks, you'll make use of ClickUp in a much more powerful way. Now let's put 3 hours on this one, 2 hours on this one, and 2 hours on this one. Now, as you can see, our main task doesn't have a time estimate. But what we can do here is go into our ClickUp settings, and we're going to turn off a pretty cool ClickUp feature in the Click apps. We're going to go try to find time estimates, and we're going to enable this feature called time estimate rollups. So what it does is that it will take the time from the subtask and it will add it together so that the main task will have the sum of the time estimates of the subtasks. And this is pretty cool because as a project manager, you want to know overall how long it will take. So let's go back to our workspace, and we are going to go into Tesla again. And here what happens if I click and refresh is that it displayed the sum of what's below. So 3 hours, 2 hours, and 2 hours make it 7 hours to write these blog articles. And if I add a fourth one, the best Tesla model for your need, whatever, and this one is going to take 6 hours to write. This makes my main task substantially longer because the time estimate moved up to 13 hours. Now again, we're going to put an assignee, we're going to put a due date. I actually recommend you to also add a start date because when it comes to workload planning, in the more advanced use of ClickUp, you also need the start date. So the best practice is to have start date, due date, assignees, and time estimates. Who does it? When does it start? When does it end? How long it takes? Now let's put some start dates. There we go. Now, as you can see, you started to understand the mechanic of ClickUp, hierarchy, view, tasks. So hierarchy is how your information is stored into ClickUp. The view is how it's displayed. And the task is the actual data, the actual information. The task can have subtasks, and you can go up to 7 levels of subtasks, although I don't really recommend to start with that. That's basically the main structure of ClickUp. Now, you can decide to display that data, as we've seen, in a list view. The main view of ClickUp is a list view, but you could decide to see it as a board, kind of like Trello, as a calendar, as a Gantt view, but I recommend you sticking with the ones that are here on top, the first 4 views, list, board, calendar, and Gantt when you start. You probably don't need the others. The others are more advanced, and you actually need to start using ClickUp to its best practices to make use of it. Today, I'm just going to show you the board, calendar, and Gantt view. Click each view and create each one of them. We go here into add a view and we select the view and add calendar, add a view, Gantt, add Gantt. And we have our 4 views here in ClickUp. Let's start with the board view. The board view is kind of like what you have in tool like Trello. I don't know if you've heard about Trello, but it's a very simple Kanban board. So the concept of Kanban board is that tasks are grouped in columns, moving from one status to the other. Each column represents a certain step of our process. This is a very visual way to make the task move forward. And this is actually cool if you have a very streamlined workflow. Say you are a sales team and you have a CRM pipeline and you want to move these deals from one step to the other. I love this view. Or you are a production company and each of your videos move from one status to the other. This is actually a great way to see things move forward. So the board view is recommended when you're working in a very linear, very systemic process. In that case, you can go for it. But on top of that, you can display this information. You might use this view by displaying your task by status, but you could also decide to display them through another field. So if you go here on the top left into grouping, you could actually display your tasks by assignee instead of displaying them by status. You might find it useful. You could also decide to display them by priority, see what's urgent, what's high, what's normal. And each time you drag and drop your tasks, that field will actually be updated. One important feature in ClickUp is to autosave the view. So I always do that so that next time I change one setting of the view, it saves itself together. I don't have to do this extra click. Now I'm not going to go again into view customization, but just so you know, you can filter, sort, display your own tasks with me mode, show the closed tasks. So all of the features that are in the list view are actually available in the board view. Moving on to the calendar view. The calendar view is where you're going to see your tasks by time. So the calendar view, you need to take some time into customizing it. So we're going to go here into the gear and go into the calendar option and turn off the weekends. I very often do that for clients because usually clients don't work on weekends. There are no ongoing tasks there. So I hide that so that there's a little bit more screen real estate for the weekdays. And then I can autosave this view again, can decide to show the week numbers if that's an important feature, or color code the task by status or by custom field. I could display another custom field for date. We'll dive into that later, but you could display the publishing date of a social media content instead of the due date of the actual tasks to have a content calendar here. So you can decide to use the date custom field for this. Now there are other extra settings like showing the hours, fitting in the task in the past, showing the week numbers, always staying on this actual date and month, moving, displaying or hiding your subtasks, displaying recurring tasks, etc. Now we're going to turn that off. And as you can see, we have our start and end dates. We can see how tasks are appearing over time. We could open it up. We can also display some other fields on the task like the assignee, the priority of the task, what's the time estimate, and this kind of custom data. So we have a quick view at who has to do this task, how long it takes, this kind of information. Calendar view is perfect if you're doing event management or campaign management or social media management. Basically, if you're handling things over time, this is probably a view that you want to use. Now moving on to one of my favorite views, the Gantt view. And in the beginning, I've had a really hard time making use of this view because it seems a little bit overwhelming. It has a lot of information, but as a project manager, this view can save you literally hours rescheduling your tasks and defining dependencies between tasks. So if you know a little bit about the Gantt methodology, this is a great view to start with. The first thing I always do when turning on the Gantt view is actually hiding weekends as well. So I'm going to customize Gantt options and I'll hide and skip weekends. And as you can see, I can display a few other things like the critical path, slack time. Critical path is the tasks that need to be done as soon as possible for the project not to be delayed. Slack time is the gap that you have between task dependencies. And then I'll go back. 2 main reasons why you want to use Gantt views. Number 1, batch rescheduling tasks. What you can actually do is reschedule the whole project of a client, for example, a month, a week, or a few days. All you have to do is go into the main green line here and drag and drop it to the right so that everything moves by 1 week. You could also select a few tasks and decide to reschedule only these 3 ones by just dragging and dropping them that way. Now, the second reason why you want to use this view is to define some dependencies. So if you don't know about the concept of dependencies in project management, it basically means task A needs to be done before task B is completed. Say task A is this one, prepare SEO campaign, needs to be done before task B, write 10 blog articles, is done. You just have to select that little dot on the right here and drag it until the very beginning of task B. And what that does here is that it creates a dependency so that if I try to turn off this task before this one is closed, ClickUp will warn me. If I try to close this task, write 10 blog articles, go into status and go into complete, ClickUp will tell me, are you sure there's a task that's waiting on this one? It's called prepared SEO campaign and it's not done yet. Are you sure you want to close it? Dependencies are a great way to have some warning between tasks, and the Gantt view is literally the one you need to create your dependencies. So in a few clicks, you can just drag and drop that little arrow and create the dependencies between each of your tasks. And if we go back into our list view, some little triangles and circles will appear here to materialize the tasks that are blocking others and the tasks that are depending on others. So everything that you change in one view in ClickUp will materialize, it will reflect in the others. A view is just a way to display tasks. Remember that. Now, a few other things you can do in the Gantt view are appearing here if you go into customize, and that can be displaying your critical path. The critical path are the tasks that you need to complete as soon as possible for the project not to be delayed. And these will highlight in red here. So these 3 tasks are the ones that you need to complete to make sure that the project ends up on time. You can also show slack time, and that's basically the gap that you have between the project end date and certain tasks for it to complete. What it means here is we can actually delay this blog article up until the 3rd of May for the project not to be late. If we go beyond that, this task will actually become a task on the critical path. So if you understand a little bit about project management and Gantt, this is a great way to display things. I find it very user-friendly. I find it much more modern than very old cool Gantt tools. Now you can also decide to turn on live updates, and basically this lets you work at the same time as someone else on the Gantt chart. You can decide to reschedule dependencies, to highlight the task position as you drag and drop it. There's a little bit of customization that you can do in the Gantt options. Now, the same way you can export your list view, you can export your Gantt view if you go into the business plan, and you can decide to export it either as an image or a PDF. So that's quite useful if you do some reporting to your manager or to someone else that doesn't have access to ClickUp. All right, so now that we've seen how the hierarchy works, how the views work, we're gonna dive into a task. So we're gonna open up a task here, and I'm going to explain you a little bit how a task is built in ClickUp. There are 3 main areas to the task here. The left one is going to be your task levels, and that's the main task and the subtasks that are below. So that if you go into a subtask, you can easily navigate between subtasks that are on the same parent task or to go back to the parent task. I found that super useful. It's a pretty new feature that they've put in, and that's definitely a game changer when it comes to navigating quickly between tasks. Now, the second area is going to be your task main information. And that's the core area of ClickUp. That's the one you need to master when it comes to operating ClickUp, to operating your task, to executing. So this central area is actually subdivided into 3 areas, in my opinion. So there's the task name, very obvious what it does. And then there is the main task information. So the status, dates, estimates, relationships that we've talked about. If a task is dependent on another, the assignees, so who does it, the priority, the tags. Tags are a way to add some topic or some custom information on a task. So you could say, for example, it's blocked, and basically this will highlight this. If you go back into the list, you can see very quickly that this task is blocked, for example. A tag is a great way to display high-level information. Now, I don't recommend you to use tags for everything. That's a very bad practice I see very often. When you start having tags to display that it's blocked, that the topic is this, that the assignee is that, people start to even put assignees into tags and they don't use the assignee field, for example, and this task area becomes a mess. Make sure you use tags for high-level information and not for little details. For this, you can actually use another feature that we'll talk about in the next video that's called custom fields. You can create your custom fields straight from a task here. So you can create different fields like drop down, a text, a date, etc. Now the second area is going to be the description. That's where you're going to describe your task, what you have to do, give more details, give more insight to the person that has to execute the task. And you can use slash commands. You can add a table, add a heading, add an image, a video. You can basically add any type of resource and format it the way you want so that it's nice and easy to understand by the person who has to do the task. Next, you're going to have the task details, and that's my third area in that main task area section. You can add some extra subtasks here, and all your existing subtasks will be displayed. If you complete them, they will actually be hidden. And if you want to see a closed subtask, you can just click this button, show when closed or hide when closed. Same for action items. So the difference between subtasks and action items is that action items are just checklists. So there are items that you will say it's done or not done, and you cannot add any custom information on it. It doesn't behave like a task, whereas a subtask behaves exactly like a task. So you can see it here in your hierarchy. You can open it up, you can add some description, you can add some comments, you can add some attachments. Whereas when it comes to action items, you can just say, for example, verify article, and that's it. All you can do is assign it to someone, but if it's done, you just have to tick this box. You can not add anything related to that action. So you have to be careful and think what to choose between action items and checklists. I recommend using action items for very fast actionable things that you shouldn't forget when you do a task, and to start using subtasks for things that need some contextual collaboration or contextual information where you need to dive a little bit deeper. Here it makes total sense to have each article as a subtask and to have a few action items on each article. So on each article, you could say create outline, then you could say spell check, and then you could say send to manager, for example. These are just items that I can tick and say, okay, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that, and I can actually complete my task. And if you don't tick all the checklists and you complete your task, ClickUp will actually warn you as well and will tell you there are 2 action items that you haven't finished. Are you sure you want to close up that task? So checklists are a very good way to make sure that the person has done everything that you're supposed to do on a task. Now I'm going to show you the last part, which is that right panel. And it's definitely one of the best features of ClickUp. That's where you're going to see everything that happens on task. It's going to be threaded. It's going to tell you when it happened, and you can actually collaborate in this area. So that's where I can say to someone that has to do this task, have you done it? Is there anything you need help for? Do you have any information to update me on? And you're going to be able to collaborate and go back and forth on this task. So what you can do is with an @ mention someone. So you can say, Upsys, have you done the article research? What you can also do instead of mentioning someone is click that little button here and assign that to that person. So what it will do is create some action item into that task, and the task will not be closed until that person has resolved that comment. So I recommend assigning the comment instead of mentioning the person when it's very actionable. Another thing you can do here is record a video clip. You can record a voice clip. You can attach an image. You can mention a task. So that's a great way to relate something to another. So with 2 ads, I can actually say, have a look at that article first. Now say that person answered and they just told me, yes, please have a look at the outline and description. I can actually go back and forth with that person and communicate here. So it'll become a thread into the task. And that's basically what makes ClickUp stand out as a collaboration tool. If you manage to use ClickUp properly, and if you manage to understand how the activity panel works, how the comments work, how the threads work here in that area, you'll be able to collaborate with your team without leaving ClickUp, without emails, without Slack, without Microsoft Teams. All of these chat and emailing tools, they become obsolete, they become useless, because ClickUp really lets you contextualize any type of discussion through the activity and the threads. Now, if I close my window and let's assume I haven't seen that comment, it will also pop up here. So there's a little pink dot with the one that appeared here. And if I click into my inbox, I can see that that person has replied, yes, please have a look at the outline and description. The inbox is actually the best way to see all of the comments and collaboration that's going on in ClickUp. Now, I've talked in the first video about how to set up your ClickUp notifications, and based on the setup that you did, a certain type of notifications will appear here in your inbox. So please make sure you look at the first video. Please make sure you set up the notifications properly. But just as a reminder, the one you should focus on are the comments, because comments are the core of ClickUp collaboration. I'm gonna stop with this video here because that's enough information for a beginner. That's enough firepower to start using ClickUp. If you master how to use the hierarchy, use your views, open up a task and start collaborating on it, you're good to go and you're good to start with ClickUp. In the next video, we're gonna move on to more advanced feature and we're gonna see what makes ClickUp a really powerful tool when it comes to project management, what makes it stand out from others. And we're going to talk about templates, we're going to talk about custom fields, we're going to talk about automations, and we're going to talk about how to combine these together to make ClickUp save you hours every day. Now, thanks for watching. Grab the free guide in the description if you want to go further, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.